Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Tea, Tentacles, and Talk Cozy Conversations about LGBTQ plus romance. I'm your host, Chloe Archer, and today I have with me JB Warrick. Give me a minute to introduce JB to all of you. JB is a writer of MM and MX paranormal and fantasy romance. They live in New York City and Chicago. Ooh, I'm going to ask you about that. And when they're not writing, they spend their time eating delicious snacks and listening to opera. If you're looking for fast-moving, open-door romance, fun and magic, and just a touch of darkness, JB's books are for you. Welcome, JB.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm delighted to have you on the show. Tell me about how are you juggling your time between New York and Chicago?
I mean, it's an interesting challenge, and it's something
Hmm.
that I'm sort of manifesting it a little bit because
Oh, okay.
I've been in New York for the last 2 or 3 years. I'm Chicago based for a long time.
Yeah.
I was in New York for a few years. I'm just now back in Chicago and trying to
Hmm.
figure out, I still go back and forth, but trying to hopefully ultimately have permanent homes,
Oh,
someday when I'm
yeah.
very wealthy, because New York is very expensive. But I
Right.
would love to not have to, stay in hotels or with friends and ultimately like feel
Mm.
totally at home in both cities. So
Right.
that is my goal. I work my sort of other day job is in theater. So I do a lot of theater, and
Oh,
so
okay.
Chicago and New York are both great cities to be in to do those
Oh,
things. So
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I was gonna say, is there something kind of pulling between those two cities? But yeah, theater totally makes sense.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
really cool. So, would you say you're kind of your passion for theater has a connection to your writing in any way?
I mean, I think so. I think that yeah, I think so. I think that I love certainly characters. The love of characters is very
Yeah.
close to, my theater background. I do a lot of directing, and so
Oh,
the
cool.
idea of like scene and character is very near and dear to my heart. I do enjoy that in a novel I have an unlimited budget. That's very helpful because
Right.
I can go anywhere, have whatever props and costumes I want, and I don't have to worry about
Right.
money.
Right.
Uh, but definitely the love of story I think is prevalent.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. So, I'm always interested. I mean, I'm still, I guess, I think I consider myself a comparatively new author. My first book came out end of 2022, so I guess it's been about 4 years almost, this fall. But I always like to kind of hear a little bit about other people's sort of writing journeys. Can you tell us a little bit about how you became a published author and what drew you to the particular types of queer romance that you write?
Totally. So I am a little bit newer than you are. I My first novel came out in fall of 2024. I
Mm-hmm.
believe that's correct. Yes, I'm doing the math. Yes. And that was the second novel that I had written. So I'd written one
Mm.
before in fall of 2023 for Nano, and it lives in a lovely file in my computer. And then yeah, I wrote the first novel I published as part of the Inkfort Publishing Derby, which is a little sort of event that a small publishing house puts on every year, in which you vote on what covers you want, and you're assigned. It's a
Mm.
ranked choice voting, and you're
Yeah.
assigned a cover, and then you write a book for that cover.
Oh,
And it's
fun.
about a 6 month process, and then you publish that book.
Mm. Yeah.
And so my first book was called The Last of the Dark Lords. That was a title that was and
Mm.
cover that was given to me, that I
Yeah.
preferred. I voted for that.
Right.
But and it's a MM fantasy romance.
Ooh.
And I published that in September of 2024 under a different pen name, but then ultimately I reverted it into this, rolled it over to
Right.
this pen name. Uh,
Sure.
and it was, yeah, it was, it's still available, and
Hmm.
I'm very fond of it. I
Mm.
will say that my tendency in sort of like fast moving, fairly short novels, it does not, I don't think necessarily speaks to the general romantasy reader. I think romantasy readers
Mm.
tend to enjoy chunkier novels, so I don't know that it's
Right.
particularly to market,
Right.
but it's a very sweet arranged marriage, enemies to
Oh, okay.
romance fantasy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well,
And then I
those are
started
fun choices.
writing my next one. So, yeah.
Okay. So, were you somebody who, like, as a kid, you really wanted to be a writer? Like, has this been a lifelong kind of aspiration, or when did it become something that you were dreaming of doing?
Yeah, I mean, definitely, definitely.
Mm.
I think that there are two things that I've always want to do, which is write musicals and write novels. I think that
Mm.
those are, and I'm very lucky in that I've gotten to do that a bit, and both of those a
Yeah.
bit. So I'm very excited about that. I was a huge reader as a kid. I read a lot
Yeah.
of I mean, I read The Lord of the Rings, I think 40 times, 40 or 50 times, like
Wow.
as a kid, like
Yeah.
once a year, definitely.
Mm.
And Stephen King, I was big Stephen King. And then I feel like my entry into more sort of this genre was Mercedes Lackey.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
the last Harold Mage series, when I read that when I
Hmm.
was when I was 15 or 16, and I was like, I
Yeah.
can't believe that this exists. Like, I was just,
Right.
blown away. I definitely have started many things. Um,
Mm.
I sold a short story in college to the now defunct Marion Zimmer Bradley fantasy magazine,
Oh.
and really didn't do a ton more writing until uh, fall of 2023 in terms of prose. I did not do a ton of prose.
Yeah.
But I think I was an interesting circumstance where I had a lot of free time. I had
Mhm.
just moved to New York, and the theater that I was working with wasn't open yet. And so
Oh.
I had lots and lots of time, and
Mm.
I had available coffee houses on every corner. And and so in November I wrote that first novel. It was the first novel, first really anything over 15,000 words that I had finished. And so
Okay.
I felt like I was like, okay, I actually know that I can do this. And
Mm.
that was a big deal. And I was like, okay, now I can refine this process, but I know that I can get over the finish line.
Right. That's often the hardest part. And I'm always trying to encourage like aspiring writers who watch the show that, keep at it, right? You can do it. It's difficult for sure, but if you keep, believing in yourself and the story you want to tell, you can totally make it happen. But sometimes just getting over the finish line it could
Totally.
take a while. It could take a while. It could be tricky. Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned kind of growing up on a lot of what I would consider to be like high fantasy type fiction. That's what got me into reading as a kid. Like I didn't really like children's books or like young adult books when I was that age. I was like, oh, these feel kind of juvenile for me. I was like maybe a little old for my age, but like when I discovered like high fantasy, the first book I discovered was Terry Brooks, Sword of
Oh yeah.
Shannara, like old classic, and that was the beginning. I was like hooked on fantasy for many many years, and there have been a lot of people I've interviewed who in the queer romance category who have a very similar kind of backstory. I think it's really interesting. Although many of us are not writing high fantasy per se, which is, I have aspirations to do it at some point, but it is also like we're talking tomes that are like so long and like involved and all of that. But I think it's maybe not that much of a hop, skip, and a jump to paranormal, which I see from your background here. We've got vampires, hellhounds. Tell us a little bit about kind of what drew you to the paranormal side of romance and kind of what you've been doing there.
Yeah, well, I think that I had not read very much paranormal. As you were
Mm,
saying, I read a lot of high fantasy growing up, and I
mm,
would say that continued into my, adulthood.
sure.
And then I read, strangely not queer, I read Alona Andrews' Kate
Oh,
Daniels series,
yeah.
which is huge. It's like 12 or
Hmm.
13 books. And I was very hooked. I had not read anything involving shifters. I had not read
Mm,
anything really like in the urban fantasy paranormal romance zone.
mm,
I had not read really much of anything there. And
okay.
so that that was probably, I think that was maybe 2021 or 2022, and
Mm,
it blew my mind. I mean, I just loved the world that they created. I loved the main characters, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I that sort of brought me over and bridged me into some of the more paranormal romance. I think
mm.
probably the first one was TJ Klune, I think was the first
Oh, sure, sure.
queer
Like the
paranormal
wolf
romance.
song.
Yeah, Wolf Song, the Green Creek series that
Yeah.
he did.
Hmm.
And then I mean, and then the floodgates were open.
Right.
And and I I read a lot in a short period of time. I feel like
Mm,
anything that had a vampire or a werewolf in it, I was like, yes,
hmm.
I'm interested. As and then
Nice.
as that moved on, then I got a little bit more into monster romance and a little bit more
Sure.
into, like, I love a bit of Mpreg here and there. I'm always excited.
Hmm.
Uh,
Sure.
uh, yeah, but and then I think led me to. I will say that my reading habits tend towards the low angst end of things. So I
Mm.
really definitely, and that might just be the world and me wanting to,
Right. Yeah,
uh
yeah.
because I remember reading Ariana Nash's the
Oh.
Princess Assassin series, which was very
Hmm.
early in my sort of like, indie author, new, as in a, starting to get into this. And my
Yeah.
heart was just racing every moment of that series. It was so
Hmm.
intense. And I was
Yeah.
like, how is this going to work out? I don't understand. And after that was done, I was sort of like, okay, I need to choose my books. Well, I can only do this once in a while because my blood pressure
Right.
can't take.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I have generalized anxiety disorder, and so there are certain things I can't read partly because of that, and I think when the world is even more kind of anxiety inducing, I gravitate a lot more to mostly what I write, which is rom-com. Like I tend to do more of the like humor is my way of coping often. And I don't know, I just really enjoy funny narratives. And so when I was thinking about what kind of brand I wanted to have as an author, I knew that humor was something that like I would always enjoy doing. So I could bring it to a bunch of different categories within romance, but that's sort of what I wanted to have as a hallmark for mine. But so do you write primarily paranormal and kind of how would you describe your brand as an author? Like what does a reader get when they read a JB Warrick novel?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they get, yes, it tends to be paranormal. Most of my books are paranormal,
Mm-hmm.
and tend to be in certainly in this last year, I've focused in on a lot of on my three vampire novels
Mm.
of that series. Although I will say that the third also has a gargoyle and a witch. And
Nice.
I think that when you get it, I wouldn't call my books uh dark in the sort of like people that really love dark romance in that way. That is not where I
Hmm.
am, but I will say that
Right.
they're fast moving. They have a lot of they have their share of gore and violence. But the
Hmm.
characters do tend to be playful inside of that.
Mm.
So
Okay.
there's emotion, and then people feel a lot of things, but they are also there's a lot of having fun. So I think it's a good balance between those things. Um,
Nice.
and I will say that as I'm drifting, I'm taking things a little darker with the
Mm.
new Hellhound series. Maybe just because it's got a little bit more lives a little bit more in religious sacrilege. A little bit. We
Oh,
have a
oh, sure.
priest main character falling in love with a
Oh.
hellhound and all of that
Ha ha
kind of
ha ha
thing.
ha.
So,
Ha.
but it
Okay.
still has, I still think there's a lot of fun to be had inside
Mhm.
of that.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think that's a great segue into me asking you to tell us a little bit about the new series and the first book. But I want to start also, I want to make sure that we also talk about the cover because it's like fire. Like, who did the cover? It's great. Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so this is the first one that I designed.
Really? Nice.
This is my first one. I I you know it, I'm certainly a new-ish author, and so
Mhm.
I don't have a huge budget for covers, and
Sure.
I have I have my list of amazing cover artists that I can't wait to work with. But I
Mhm.
sort of had a vision for this series and what I wanted to feel
Yeah.
like,
Nice.
and had been really looking at a bunch of um, covers that I really loved. I really
Mm.
love Gray Bryan's series,
Oh yeah.
the Vampire series. Think those
Mm-hmm.
covers are super fun. And I also just really love this like super saturated vibe that I'm seeing a lot lately.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of
Right.
what I went for here. And it was really fun, and it I've been playing around with it for a while, but I finally was like, okay, I think I know what I want for this, and I think I can make it happen.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm always fascinated by this because I just really don't have much in the way of design skills personally. So that's something I always hire somebody for because I'm like, okay, this is not in my wheelhouse so much. But well, tell us a little bit about the series, sort of what inspired you to kind of develop this world and what is the first book? Give us a little rundown of kind of what the first book is about.
Yeah, totally. So uh have I have a soft spot for hellhounds. I
Mm,
enjoy a hellhound shifter romance. I've read a few of them, although I will say there's not a million out there. But I will
no.
say that I did a little poll in my newsletter, and
Yeah.
people agreed. Gave them some options. I was like, if I were to go in somewhere new, would you like this? Would you
Yeah.
like Faye?
Mm,
And I was hoping they were going to choose Hellhounds, and they did. So it worked out really well.
nice.
Because I think it's super fun. I will say that I do really love playing with like spirituality and religion, and
Mm,
also just like it doesn't get into too much into this, but I love a bureaucracy of the afterlife series.
mm.
Shannon May has some really fun
Oh,
uh,
sure.
series. Has a really fun series around like angels and demons that I really enjoy in terms of that.
Hmm.
And we get a
Hmm.
little bit of this in this, and we'll get more as the series goes
Okay.
on. But for this one, I was just like, I want to go a little bit darker, and I want to push it a little,
Mm,
push it a little bit, and see what
sure.
happens if we have a devout priest and a
Yeah.
hellhound fall in love and what that would do, a Catholic priest. And so
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, it uses some of the iconography. You know, I grew up Catholic and I enjoy playing
Mm,
that world a little bit. I enjoy
sure.
queering that world a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, so it features Hunter, who is a very bored hellhound who is, you know, on Earth with a
Mm,
purpose, trying to take down magic users, but isn't doesn't have any leads,
right.
and is horrified to learn that his fated mate is the
Is
Catholic priest.
right.
And you know, as he tries, he
Mm,
ends up doing the stalking that is so part of his character.
right.
uh,
Nice.
yeah. And I will say that I my books do tend to have fated mates early in them.
Mm.
It is one of my favorite tropes. I know that people feel ways about it, and I just think it is what I love to read, and it's also there's just so much to play with in terms of
Oh, yeah.
the tension of having a fated mate and what it means if you are conflicted about that. And
Right.
so
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely a staple trope within paranormal. I don't think there are a lot of avid readers of paranormal who are like, I don't read Fated Maze. You know?
true.
Um, not every paranormal has that per se, but it's a pretty pervasive, dominant kind of trope, I think, in paranormal. But I think it is really interesting to see the different ways that authors in their world building kind of conceive of what it means to be a fated maid and like how that dynamic works. And I think there's a lot that, you can play with there. Um, Very, very cool. So can you tell us a little bit about sort of your writing process for this book? How did it all kind of come together and was it reflective of your general writing process, or do you find that your process kind of changes with each book?
Yeah, I think it gets more refined. Um
Sure.
Definitely and also I would definitely put myself as a planter
Okay.
or or a tweener, I guess as some people would call it.
Right.
Uh and in that I do start with an outline, and
Okay.
I have refined over time exactly how much information I want in that outline.
Mm,
I definitely have written books earlier on that had more information than that outline, and I found it, you know, hard to keep excited about the book.
yeah.
And so, really, I would say I have about a two-page outline that I start with,
Okay.
and so it gives me like big bullet points, uh, but usually I definitely depart from that at some point, and I also discover a lot about the story and the character in the process of
Mm,
writing it.
yeah.
Yeah, because it and I it's funny because I feel like and when I started I was like, well, I have an analytical mind and I like to know everything, and then I was like, oh no, this is really hard. I hate this.
Yeah.
uh, so I do like that discovery definitely.
Yeah.
And I have been writing, you know, fairly fast. You
Mm,
know, about 4 months
yeah.
for books.
Sure.
I might after this one releases take a little more time with the next one.
Sure.
Just so that I don't burn out.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
do like I also there I do like having a deadline, and I do like being like I know that
Mm,
this publishes, and so I need to get it in great shape by then. And I generally go through, you know, probably 4 drafts in the course of it, and beta readers and all
right.
that. So
Yeah.
to have that date sitting there being like, yep, that's what I'm doing and it's got to get done is
Right.
definitely the deadline. I definitely work to a deadline. That is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, some people do, some people don't. Uh I try to have a deadline. It sometimes is a moving deadline.
Sure.
Mostly because like I also have like a full-time day job, which, that always has to take priority sometimes when, and I did learn in I think like year three, like, oh, maybe let's not put up pre-orders until we have a draft of a book. Like I'd been sailing along okay, and then I got to a point where it's like, oh, this one's just not gonna happen. And so now I kind of am a little bit more cautious about when I've got a first draft, then I'll put out a
Yeah.
pre-order. But I mean, these are things you kind of learn along the way and with your own sort of writing style. But yeah, I do find it really interesting. I'm also I lean more toward discovery. I don't necessarily do an outline. I need to know my main characters pretty well first. And I know certain features of the world. And before I start a book, I have to know how it begins and how it ends. And that's about it. I don't know how they're going to get from the beginning to the end, but I'll
Totally.
figure it out as I sort of go along. And for me also, it is an issue of like being able to maintain interest in writing the book because if I plot it out to an intricate level, then I'm like, well, now I don't want to write it. Like I know everything that's going to happen, and then it feels like a bit more of a torturous exercise rather than like a fun process where you're like, ooh, I didn't know that was going to happen as you're going along, right? And there are other authors I've interviewed who are like intricate plotters, like the idea of not having a detailed outline and for every single chapter would give them hives, that kind of thing. So it's always interesting. And I always like to have these conversations because I try to encourage viewers to think about this, that there is no one way, right?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone's different. Experiment, see what works with you. And I've talked to a lot of authors who also it changed for them over time. They started in one spot and then they just, they maybe were entirely a pantser and then they moved into, okay, now I kind of plot this, and this, and that kind of thing. And of course, it gets more
Yeah.
complicated if you're doing a series or things along those
Totally.
lines.
Well, and I
Yeah.
think that for me, it's like, I will say that I'm an underwriter.
Really?
My second drafts always have more words than my first draft.
Ah.
And so I need to know that I have at least a few things that I know can happen. Because I will
Mm.
just barrel on right through to the end and be like,
Oh, wow. Okay.
solved. uh, so I do need
That's
a
fun.
few signposts along the way, but not too
Yeah.
many because then it gets then you lose the
Yeah.
fun of it. So yeah.
Right. 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 Um, So I know you're still kind of comparatively new at this, but have you learned anything in the last 2 years that you wish you'd known before you got it started?
Ooh, that's such a good question.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, definitely a lot. I feel like uh, I, I, I will say that I am still struggling with this,
Hmm.
but I feel like I've learned a lot about it, and having perspective would be helpful. Is just, uh, that idea of like zoning in or honing in on the way especially in terms of marketing and reaching out to people, like the things that are actually doable and not
Hmm.
getting totally overwhelmed and in the weeds, because I definitely can get.
Oh, yeah.
And I weirdly, I don't have that much comparison with other authors in terms of the writing. Like I don't compare myself a ton with other authors. I don't feel
Hmm.
bad about myself in that way. I am often a little jealous of people that write really fast. I mean, I take a look at AJ Sherwood. I'm
Oh
just
my
like, how
gosh.
or what or how is this happening?
AJ's a bit of an anomaly. I mean, yeah, that there's a kind of special synergy there that is not replicable, you know? It's like you're
No.
either born with it or you're not. I had a great time interviewing AJ, but I was just, yeah, because AJ told me, oh, I wrote 130,000 words in September. And I was like, what? In 1 month? Like, are you okay?
She,
Right?
I think she was talking about she sent a draft in that was like 120,000 words, and the editor brought it back, and then she wrote another 100,000 words on it.
Right.
And I
Yes.
was just like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, what is happening?
Right. To be fair, it is a romantasy with like a lot of
Yeah,
fantasy world building. So
a
I mean,
hundred
I
percent.
get
Yeah,
it, but like but to write that much that fast, there aren't a lot of people who can do that. At
yeah,
least not to the same with the same consistency. Because I
yeah.
mean, AJ's output has not really changed. It's not gone down
No.
over the years, right? But I have interviewed other authors who have gone a rapid release route, and like for a lot of them it has led to burnout, right?
Yeah,
And I asked AJ about that too because I was interested. I was like, other people I've talked to when they've tried to do something along these lines, they could sustain it for a while, but after about 2 or 3 years is usually the critical mass point where then they're like, I hit burnout, I hit a wall, right? And AJ's
100%.
like, no, I've been doing this for 15 years or whatever. I'm like, well, like kudos to you, but that
I
is
I'm so
not
happy.
replicable, not replicable. I mean, it's inspiring, but yeah, I think I would potentially give myself a stroke or a heart attack try to try to do that. But yeah, I mean, but I think you bring up a good point. I think like a lot of times newer authors can fall into a comparisonitis trap, right?
Yeah,
Where they want to look at other people in their genre or comp authors essentially that they're aiming to hit a similar demographic and feel like, oh, I haven't reached the level of this other person, and all of those kinds of things. And in my experience, that just leads to losing confidence in yourself, and that makes it harder to write, right?
yeah.
Um, you know, I am a little bit weird, and I am a I am a type 8 on the Enneagram scale. I don't know if you do the Enneagram stuff at all, but
No, I
like,
haven't.
so it means I'm an overachiever. So my day job, I have a PhD, is one of those kinds of things. And so for me, I've only ever been in competition with myself. Like that's
Yeah,
how I roll, kind of thing. And I have found it advantageous in the sense that I don't get real fussed about what other people are doing. I look and kind of see like where are trends going? What kind of stuff is shifting? Oh, is somebody using a new cover style that would work really well also with like my stuff? But I'm not really looking to be like, I want to replicate some kind of success or something that
yeah.
somebody else is doing. It's more about um one-upping myself, right?
I get
Uh,
it.
I mean, well, and I think like I'm not sure about you, but I don't really write to market in the sense that I mean, sometimes I happen to hit on something that is popular or becomes popular, but mostly I'm writing the kind of stories that I would want to read, and they're often kind of quirky and lots of geeky humor kind of stuff. And so for the readers it really works with, and then other people are like, that okay, so but how about yourself? Do you feel like in terms of writing paranormal, like do you try to write more to market, or does the market sort of like influence moderately what you're doing or not?
It does influence a little bit.
Sure, sure.
I, I, but I think mostly it tends to be. I mean, with the new series, I sort of
Hmm.
looked at the landscape
Yeah.
and I said, I think more Hellhound stuff is coming out, and I
Hmm.
really like Hellhound, and
Yeah.
so I'm gonna give it a
Jump
try.
on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, but also I could be very wrong because it's not cresting right now. Like I'm just sort of predicting
Right.
based on what I've seen and what I read.
Right.
Uh, and I would never, I definitely, I wouldn't say that there are writers that write stuff they don't like, but I will say that there are people that really can get super excited about anything, and so they can easily,
Yeah, yeah.
they can easily
Oh,
jump
sure.
on trends because they are just, that's how their brain works. Mine doesn't.
Yeah.
My vampire series was about opera. Like it's called The Vampire
Mm,
Impresario, and
that's cool.
it's opera. It takes place in the world of grand opera, and so that is something that I think is super fun. I'm an opera nerd, and
Uh,
so and also it's, it's lush and it's grand and it's, big
right,
emotions, and so I think it fits a lot with
right.
vampires. And similarly, so I'm gonna and similarly, this is gonna have, this right now has a lot of religious themes that are also
Mhm.
similarly theatrical, and so
Right,
uh
right.
and so I'm always going to be drawn to that, and
Mm,
I feel like um I tr- I probably don't follow ideas that I feel like are total no-goes
yeah,
in terms
right,
of the
sure.
market. I probably I sort of am like, well, maybe if that feels more doable later, I'll put that in my drawer and,
Mhm.
hit it later.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm not a huge to market person. I am aware of it, and I try to
Yeah.
definitely, if I feel like something is there that people love in a later draft, I
Mhm.
might try to bump it,
Sure.
pump a little more juice into
Yeah,
it. Uh, but it,
totally.
but in that first draft, the door is closed, and
Yeah,
I'm gonna follow the things that I think are really fun. Uh,
right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing against anybody who like writes to market. I think it's its own unique talent if you can do that.
yeah, totally.
And I do think you have to be a pretty fast writer, especially if you're one who likes to jump on like a new trend, right? Like you've got to put that book out really fast. Where I'd be the one like, ooh, I could fit that in 5 years from now, right?
Right.
Like, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's not gonna jump on the bandwagon, right? But okay, but I have to come back to the opera thing because like that's really fascinating. And also, of course, like right now, like, so what's your hot take on the ridiculous Timothy Chalamet like dissing of opera and ballet, right? Like that's been all over my social media feeds of late.
Listen, I I don't know Timothy Chalamet. I don't know what his brain was doing at that moment.
Oh, right?
I it it seems to me that,
Mm,
you reach a certain level of fame, and you're
mm.
just very insulated, and so
Yeah.
things that are, that before people would challenge you on, or people would sort of be like, hey, rethink that, there's no one there
Hmm.
to do that anymore.
Right.
And so I do think that, like, you just get in your own zone. I don't, I don't know from him. I will say that I think that right now, because of the way culture is now,
Mm,
and I think we see this in books more than anything, it's
mm.
so segmented, and there are just super fans
Yeah.
for everything, and I feel like
Hmm.
opera and ballet have more super fans than they ever have in the past,
Yeah.
because the way that, like, the internet and accessibility towards
Mhm.
accessibility of, like, video and people that are opera singers and that are ballet stars that post and interact with audiences. I think that
Right.
it's a great time. Like, I think that
Oh yeah.
it if you had asked me 10 minutes, if you asked me 15 years ago, is opera dying or is ballet dying, I'm like, well, maybe. And now I'm like, well, it might not exist in the form it is now, but people love it, and there are people that
Right.
just adore it, and young people. Like, it's not all,
Yeah. Yeah.
octogenarians. I went to the Met all of the time. Whenever I'm in
Mm,
New York, I always go to the
yeah.
Met, and I buy those $35 seats, and I sit in the roof
Yeah.
basically and look down
All
on the
right.
stage.
Right.
And there are people, that are there, that are have never seen an opera before,
Mm,
um
mm-hmm.
and I find it, and I also just, I love, like, you'll see, a 19-year-old college student talking
Yeah.
to the 80-year-old old dude that has literally sat in that seat for every performance for the last 15
Right.
years, and
Right.
it's awesome. Like that stuff is so great. So I don't think he's right. But also,
No,
you
no,
know,
no.
but
I
also
think
Michael B. Jordan, yay. So I'm
yeah, right, right. Yeah, yeah. Well deserved, well
yeah.
earned. Yeah, I mean, I do think because I just bring it up in part because I am also so my day job, I'm a film studies professor.
Oh,
So
cool,
my
cool.
background is in film, and I always find these things interesting because, of course, there is actually a very long-standing like connection between other art forms like ballet and opera and cinema, right? Particularly since in the early silent days, most of the early silent films were recordings of theatrical productions, right? It was
Mhm.
literally just stationary camera recording performance on stage, right? But I also think about like genres like action cinema, a lot of like well-known, particularly martial arts stars, folks like, I'm going to date myself because I'm kind of older here, but like back in the day, like Jean-Claude Van Damme and Jet Li and, all of them, they did ballet. They learned ballet and gymnastics to improve their abilities, to perform certain types of stunts in film, right? And I think, opera, any kind of vocal training is essential to acting as well, whether you're doing on screen, on stage, or if you're doing, audio narration, that kind of thing. So yeah, I think, sometimes there are definitely folks who work within industries who have limited apparently knowledge of the history of those industries and art forms. But so that's partly why it kind of fascinated me. But
Well, I also saw maybe in the fall The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay at the Met,
okay.
um, which based on the Michael Chabon novel, and it is so tied to film and tied to comic books, and
Mm,
they used all of this projection that was. I'm always a little iffy on projections because I'm like, is this necessary? Well, in this case, it was very necessary because it's
mm,
so tied to comic book and film and
yeah,
history, and so it was just I loved it, and also new opera is hard sometimes to get people on board, and I was like, this is delightful and just
yeah,
wonderful and moving and beautiful, and so uh I I I just love when all of that intersects in the art forms. You
yeah.
take a look at how they link and all these different points.
Okay, so this raises a question for me. Are you a writer who can listen to music like opera while you're writing?
Hmm.
I am a bit of an anomaly in the sense that I can listen to instrumental or vocal-based music when I'm writing, but I have discovered there are a lot of authors who can't. Like they can't double with their brain, like they just can't multitask, I guess, on that front. Like where do you fall in that?
I can too, and it's funny.
Ooh.
I was just talking to my sister-in-law who's an academic, and she was talking about how she can't listen to music while she writes. And I was like, well,
Mm.
I just wrote a whole very sacrilegious romance novel while listening mostly to CC Winans. So
Oh, wow.
a lot of gospel went into this
Yeah.
novel.
Wow. Well, I mean, yes, it feels well, I mean, so do you kind of associate it? Because like for me, often different types of music are different types of moods, right? So like depending on the world or the story that I'm writing, I'm like, oh, this is the type of music I need for this story. So I find like, because I'm a mood reader, writer, and music has always been something that affects my mood radically, right? Do you find that it's the same for you? Like, do you pick particular things that evoke a mood for you, or is it more thematic?
I would say it is not super thematic.
Mm,
It does, however, have to be a certain kind of music
mm,
for it to work for me, because it needs to have some drive to it.
yeah,
Um, and so what, often it is something like gospel, weirdly gospel and opera
Hmm?
stuff, but it can't be kind of slow, it can't be contemplative really,
Yeah.
because I need the goose, I need to be goosed, I need the like, I need the
Well, for your
energy.
faster pace for the
Yeah,
stories too, maybe.
totally. I
Yeah.
need that energy of the like whatever the genre is, that it, has that sense of drive
Mhm.
uh and like wakes me up, especially if I'm writing at, 7 in the morning and I'm like,
Right.
okay.
Right, right, right.
Be my oral coffee, please.
Right, right, right. No, I mean that's really interesting. You're the first other writer I've encountered so far who can listen to music and music with lyrics
Yeah,
and write. I haven't encountered a lot actually.
yeah,
Um, different brain wiring, I guess, in terms of like what you can do for concentration and stuff.
yeah.
But um, okay, so I always love to ask. Is there a genre, like a subgenre of romance that you like to read, but you don't think you could write?
Sure.
Mm.
um I let me think. Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely the answer is definitely yes.
Okay.
Um,
Well, okay, I'll let you think about it for a second, and I'll say that mine has always been like sports romance
oh,
because I have like zero interest in sports. I don't have anything against people who love it, but I just could not feign interest or enthusiasm, and I'd have to learn how the sports work, and I'm like, no. So that would never happen.
I
But
will say that
sometimes reading is okay.
I I wish that I liked reading sports romance more. But when,
Mhm.
it's sports romance is so popular right now, and
Mm,
I would,
really is.
I'm happy for everyone involved.
Oh yeah.
And but I just, it's just not, I can't, I can't, I can't, I can't. I literally, maybe I took 30 seconds and I was like, could I write a sport? No, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
right.
It just doesn't hold much excitement for me. I will say
Mm,
that a lot of it, I do read a decent amount of contemporary romance generally,
okay. Mm,
and I don't write it.
yeah.
I don't know that I can't, but
Right.
I I don't know that I can. I
Yeah,
definitely like,
sure.
I have a I'm noodling in my head a little bit, occasionally, on like a small town rom-com kind of moment.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
But I don't, I think I would miss my magic and my
Right.
creatures and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I like the whole escapist dynamic into a world I can create and have control over. I think
Yeah.
is pretty fun. But I am delving into some contemporary with a co-writer, and I was like, okay, I feel like I could do it with a co-author, but
Oh yeah.
by myself, I'm not as certain. But okay, so on a flip kind of side. Um, is there a trope you haven't written that you really want to write?
Um, yes.
Okay.
I would say, uh I would say there's a couple.
Ooh,
I
okay.
I do think, like, uh I really want, this is so like classic old school romance. I really want to
Mm.
write an amnesia trope, and I haven't done that yet.
Ooh,
I
yeah.
think that would be super fun to write.
There
Uh
aren't a ton of them out there these days
right.
either. Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
and then I also want to write the queer version of Surprise Baby. I don't know what that is.
Oh,
But
oh.
like, I love a,
Billionaire surprise baby. Like, I mean,
right?
those Harlequin. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah, that would be those little Avon pocket. But
Yes. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Because that's honestly,
I love it.
before any other reading, I would like sneak peeks at my mom's Harlequin
Right,
romances.
right.
I have such vivid memories of I can't remember if it was called Death Spiral or whatever, but it was like there was an ice skating one.
Ah,
can see the cover in my mind so clearly.
mhm.
And I would pick up those, those Fabios,
Oh
the cover,
yeah.
So
Yep.
it's really all her fault. I tell her that.
Yeah, my mom had like she had one of those ones where it was like I think like you'd get a in the mail like a certain number of paperbacks every month kind of subscription thing that they had. That so she would have lots of those and then she watched and this is probably where I have a lot of my camp sensibility. She watched a ton of soap operas and I'm just like the biggest hoe for a good soap opera. Like
Love it.
I mean they're just so over the top and like ridiculous in the best kinds of ways. And they bring in every possible trope, right? Amnesia,
Yes.
the secret baby, like
Evil twin.
the evil, yes, the evil twin, like all of that kind of stuff. And so I would really actually love to see like an entirely queer soap opera,
Oh.
like on the air. Like I thought, anyway. That's a whole other I could spend a whole hour talking with you about that. But I know we're getting low on our time here. And so Profane Devotion is out already. Yes?
It comes out on March 24th. So
Okay.
it
I
may
will
be
have
out right now by the time this
yes.
airs. Yeah.
Yes. But I will have the link in the show notes for everyone. And before we sort of head out, can you tell my viewers what else do you have in the pipeline for this year? What else is coming?
Yeah. So if you haven't read my vampire romances, there will be a box set coming out
Ooh,
in
nice.
May, and then in June the first audiobook for The Tenor Shadow, which is the first in that series, it will be coming out.
Awesome.
Um, and then later in the year, we will have our second Hellhound book.
Fun.
It does not have a title yet, but I'm very
Okay.
excited. And if you read Profane Devotion, you will probably be able to guess whose book that
Yeah.
is.
Nice.
And then also I'm branching off a little. I think
Ooh.
that later this year there'll also be a MM urban fantasy coming out. I'm
Ooh.
pretty excited about it.
Exciting.
That is the novel that I've had a draft of for a while, and I think I'm just ready to send my baby out into the world. And so I'm going to be working on it, and that'll be published later this year as well.
Well, that sounds great. I encourage everybody to go and check out JB's work. Thank you, JB, for chatting with me today. And to all of my viewers, stay tuned and we'll be back again in April. Thanks so much.